What's going on, Neon Nation? Welcome back to the Neon Arcade for part 3 of our Cyberpunk 2077 community podcast. If you guys don't know what this is, we usually meet every Sunday, chat a little bit about Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt Red, all that good stuff. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce our kind of panel, I guess you could call them. We'll start from the left to the right. So hello, Triple S League, how are you?
Hello, I'm good today.
Good, good. How's your weekend?
Very good. We had, I've had a great past day, and the news and info has been juicy. So
Nice. You were telling me about, some projects you were working on yesterday, so it seems like you had a
hmm
productive little weekend.
yes, and I've been talking. Yesterday, I spent I don't know probably 6 hours talking to like 4 devs. So it was a
Holy,
really fun day too.
nice. So next up we'd usually have LastKnownMeal, but he's actually sick today. So
He was actually supposed to host today, and
No, Neon
no,
was
I
supposed
was
to
supposed to
coach.
host.
oh right. Sorry,
So,
and he got really sick today.
that's unfortunate. F in chat for LastKnownMeal. We hope you feel better. We miss you. But hopefully he'll be on here next time. And then we'll jump to Mad Queen. How are you?
Greetings, Earthlings. Well, I started to be better. I had to take the week off because I'm an idiot, mostly. Because I get stressed, and when I get stressed, what do? I go to the gym, and the more stress I get, the more I lift, and the more weight I lift, and I went a little bit carried away, and I got a fever from lifting too much weight,
Oh man,
and I hurt my back. So
you should
doctor
get
said,
a
wake off.
you should get a lifting belt. Those help with your lower back injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it wasn't the lower back.
Oh, okay. Just upper back?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
So, I had some topics that I had listed down here. I'm just gonna kind of go through them, and I guess we'll decide which ones we can talk about. There's the release manager listing by CD Projekt Red. I guess we can start off with that one.
hmm
You guys cool with that?
Yep.
Sweet. So, okay. If
Sure.
you guys don't know, CD Projekt Red has just made a job listing for a release manager, and so that comes with some implications that we are going to discuss. What do you guys think? Is this a good move, proactive move? Is this an indicator of a release date?
You first sip.
So basically it's like I talked about this on our Friday podcast, and this is basically a huge flag saying that this game is coming out in the next like 6 to 8 months.
Oh,
Um because this is a job that big studios have this position like year round, like all the time,
hmm
but smaller studios and very quickly, CDPR is becoming not a small studio, but they still only have like two projects that are on the immediate window for release within the next 2 years by their own accounting. That's not enough to warrant somebody coming in for this position all the time.
right.
Um, but so
Before
until
you
the
go on, can someone please clarify to me what this position exactly means? Because I'm not sure.
So yeah, I can explain it. So basically, I mean, it changes from company to company. Every position in every company is slightly different, right? There's different expectations. There's different things that somebody would cover. There's different skill sets that the people bring. So it changes everything up. But basically, this is somebody who comes in whose main goal is to make sure that the product launch goes smoothly and kind of communicates with the publishers, the distributors, spends a lot of time, monitoring the social media, organizing the response team to any issues. Like for
Mm.
example, if like coming up to the release, they're going to be doing tons of like networking, communicating, working with different distributors, especially if you're launching on multiple distribution platforms. You're going to be headlining any issues that come up. So, somebody from Steam calls and says, "Hey, there's a coding error that we're having or something like that with the product that's being preloaded onto their server for distribution, or they're making sure that the right things are in the right places." And so that kind of goes through that person. So instead of going to the team leads and saying, "Hey, there's something wonky with the server," the this person will come in, answer that question, then either put that out to the team leads or straight to the problem solving team, and then kind of fix that. Once the release hits, then they're basically, and I've known 2 people that have had this job, and when their product releases, they move into the company for the duration of like the week that the game comes out. So they eat and sleep at the company, and they are there
Wow.
24/7.
That's insane.
Because if there's an error with say everybody remembers the crash on the Diablo servers, right? Error 34, and you couldn't play at all. This the person who does this job is basically there to like be a firefighter for those problems that flare up. So every time there's a problem, instead of so and so at the company needing to call so and so who's off, who calls then somebody else, who calls then somebody else, this person is there to handle all of those problems immediately and quickly. So
Right.
so it's really really interesting.
They're also responsible for like sending out different builds, like preemptively, correct? What do they have to do with when it comes to builds? Is that the gist of it?
So it's also it's that, but it's also like they're preparing to check out, like you said, there might be different builds, for other games where it's like you have different pre-order access codes for bonuses for pre-ordering from Walmart or EB Games or GameStop or Steam or Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. Those things are horrible, by the way, but
Right.
it's their job to kind of like make sure that each of those builds are on the right place. Nothing's going to be worse than sending the wrong codes to the wrong distributor for the wrong pre-order items. Now,
Mhm.
I can't remember when that's happened, but I do know where that's almost happened several times. And
Yikes.
at the last minute, they were like scrambling to get the proper code to the proper people so that they could distribute it via their distribution methods. But this was a problem that happened like weeks before the advance or before the release. In the one case that I remember quite distinctly,
Right.
they had sent it was for one of the major publishers. They sent them the wrong key codes for the wrong thing. So I'm just going to make up some names here because that way I don't get in trouble or get anybody else in trouble. Let's just say, hypothetically,
Sure.
Amazon had advertised that if you pre-order with them, you get a pink bunny. And GameStop had said if you pre-order with them, you get a black bunny.
Mm-hmm.
And people wanted, for whatever style, they wanted the pink one or the black one. So what happened is that instead of the pink one ending up where it should, the black one ended up there, and then the pink one ended up with the other one.
Right.
And this happened like 2 or 3 weeks before the product went live.
Mhm.
And it was when those codes were supposed to be activated when they realized that they were mismatched. So the person running that department at the time had to get 3 different team leads into their office, figure out the fastest, most effective way to come up with the solution, and then they fixed it within like 3 days. And so that's the kind of stuff that happens. So it's like basically you're an all-round firefighter / communicator. You make a lot of contacts because you're talking directly to like head people at EB Games, at Amazon, at GameStop, at Walmart, at et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And you're communicating with them constantly. These are the people who these people in these positions were the ones who called Walmart Canada last year when they leaked that entire list of upcoming
Release
games
dates.
right before E3.
Right.
Yeah, and all of the release dates, some of which were accurate, some of them which were placeholders.
Mhm.
And it was like 10 of these people called Walmart Canada and were like, what the hell? Why did you do this?
Sold us out, bro.
What's going on, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. So it's more or less that kind of
Setup.
kind of a thing. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Like, my question here is why do you assume that the fact that they are looking to cover this position means that the game is going to be released this year?
But he said 6 to 8 months, right? So that's
yes.
like a
So most of these positions are temporary.
Yes.
So most of these people go from company to company, and it's extremely rare for them to show up to cover a game release more than 8 months out of the window. So if
Yes,
they're
but that they started the hiring process doesn't mean that they're going to hire in the following week.
Right. They
no,
still have
no,
to
it
they still have to
doesn't.
get him on board, right? I guess is what
Yeah.
she's saying. Mhm.
There are several positions that they were looking to cover for long. For instance, I believe that the marketing community manager for the States, or not community manager, marketing
Mhm.
manager or something like that for the States.
Yeah.
They've been trying to cover it for a couple of months, and
Yeah.
they put the position live like 2 months ago, and they keep repeating it, which I believe it means that they didn't find a person. So the same way, maybe they are putting a position out with enough time to find the appropriate person.
Hmm. Well, and that would be obviously that would work pretty well, except and they could be planning it for like a year from now, but that would also be really, really unprofessional. So if you put out a call and you go and you interview, and they say, when do you want me to come and start working? And they say, because it's a temporary position, most likely, and they say 12 months from now. Like, you're gonna be like, I don't know where I'm gonna be in 12 months. Like why would I do that? Most of these people know their schedule within the next like 6 months, and that's it.
I
Some of
understand what
them
you
are
mean.
less than 3 months.
I
So
understand what you mean, but my point is that there are several positions that we already saw in positions that we're trying to cover regarding Cyberpunk 2077, and they didn't cover them in 2-3 months.
They still
That's why I'm saying it. Maybe this
yeah,
time, as this is something that has a deadline. Maybe this time they tried to look for a person with enough time to find the appropriate person, and that doesn't mean that they're going to release this year.
That's
yeah.
true because
Well, I
like they
mean,
still haven't found a PR manager for North America, and they sent out that
That
listing
PR manager. Fuck.
like
Couldn't find
five
the name.
5 months ago. Yeah, is that what you're referring to?
yeah,
Yes.
Which is kind of
yeah,
unfortunate, but like yeah, that's kind of the process they have to go through, right? Sometimes they're not going to get it right away,
yeah.
but hopefully, I
Well,
don't know.
I know that they're having some difficulty finding a PR manager for North America, because there's a lot of people who don't want to work for them because of several recent issues. So it's
It's not only that. I mean, hiring talent is not that easy in general.
yeah, no,
That's a
and
big
for a
position.
position like this, you want to make sure that you have the absolute right thing. I
Mm.
cannot remember her name off the top of my head, which I feel really terrible about. So as I'm talking, I'm going to try and be dredging up my messages. Holly Bennett, there we are,
Yes.
is the
UK.
UK
Hmm.
manager. She just got hired not too long ago.
Couple months ago, yeah.
So yeah, a couple months ago. So yeah, we're seeing more and more of this stuff kind of setting up in this position. However, and I have to say this because there are certain rules in certain countries for certain ways that you do hiring. This is not the standard for all companies, but this is depending on the labor laws, in which I can't make this clear enough. I don't know 100% in this particular situation if it works this way, but for many companies, especially companies that have to deal with any kind of a union or government contracts or government funding, which is why I'm mentioning this, because CDPR is government funded.
Right.
There are rules where if you are doing a position where you're creating a position and then you're filling that position, and you're most likely going to fill it from an internal source, meaning that somebody from the inside of the company is just going to get a promotion. There are rules where you have to post those job applications to the public. So
I see.
so that you are it's an anti-corruption thing, right? And it's a transparency thing. So if you're wanting to move Penny from her current position into this prime position, and you do so without creating a job application and posting it to the job board externally, and accepting applications for it, for resumes for that position, then you will get into legal trouble and you can be sued or fined.
Right.
And this is why I'm mentioning this, because this may be what they have to do, because they're either a public company, or B, like they have to answer to shareholders, and the shareholders want to know that the company is not, the company is not showing favoritism to employees for inaccurate things. Like if I wanted to rip money off from a public company, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would hire my friend Joe to basically do nothing but show up at a couple meetings, shake his head, nod his head, and say, "Yeah, I'm an expert in nuclear fusion."
Right.
Even though we don't have a position for nuclear fusion, do you get what I'm coming
I
at?
get the, I get the, yeah.
Yeah. So it's something that's quite odd
Mm-hmm.
to comment on, but it may be
Type,
why.
please allow me to stop you
Yeah,
just a second. Damichu said, doesn't mean anything. It was just making a joke, you idiot. Please don't insult don't insult other people on the comments. That's
Yeah,
pretty sad. I don't like it.
Let's keep the chat positive, you guys.
Yes.
We're all
We're all friends
here. Exactly.
Please go on, Type. Sorry to interrupt you.
So it's basically, it's like it's a potentially why they're posting these. I'm not saying that that's for sure, because I don't actually know whether or not they have to follow these laws, because I'm not an expert in Polish business practices. I'm and I also haven't really asked any of my contacts whether or not this is even a thing, whether they have to abide by this rule or not. I assume that it's pretty common, but I can't guarantee that, right? So that's why I mention it. It's like there's a chance that this might be exactly why they're doing it.
Right.
Why some of these positions get posted, don't get filled at all, seemingly, and then suddenly somebody has the job from the inside of the company. And this might be why this is happening in this particular way. But again, because I can't confirm that, kind of just have that on the side of your head going, oh, okay, well, that might be why. That might be what's going on here, right?
And do they publicly have to announce when those positions are filled? I don't know if you mentioned that. They don't necessarily have to do that as well, right? So
in government positions, they don't have to do that either. So like government contractors, for example, have to for government contractors in North America, typically this is a really common practice. They have to post those things, Canada and the States.
Right.
And when the States does it, it's because it's funny, because there's a couple of scenarios where they're forced to put this posting out there, because they're gonna promote a guy from the inside, but there's nobody who can fill that position, because that position is like, there's only like one person on the planet who can do it, and it just so happens to be Joe or Penny. And Joe and Penny are being, it's a mandatory promotion, because they have to, because the project is advancing. However, it's mandatory for them to put out the ad to have transparency, and then and to be able to report on, well, we gave Joe an extra $100,000 a year, and we gave him access to this account and this account, so that Joe could actually do his job. Joe or Penny, whatever. And so that's why that happens that way. But what happens, which is really funny, is sometimes certain temp agencies or certain people will send their resume in saying, oh yeah, I've got 10 years experience on that project, even though that project has only existed for like 8.
Yeah.
It's like, really? So
I think I heard a statistic somewhere that like 60% of people lie on their resumes and CVs.
The funny thing about this conversation is that we're talking about the project that is one of the most transparent companies in gaming. Imagine that we covered Activision. We could do a lot of conspiracy theories about that.
We'd have content for like 10 years to go off of.
Yes, just to cover
covering their tracks.
Yes.
Yeah. And even with that, like, they had to post out, what the deal of the contract was, because it's a publicly traded company. So that's why we found out that they fired 400 people, 800 people, whatever it was, at Activision, where their grand total salaries didn't even equal like a quarter of what they paid this new guy that they hired to come in to do the same job that he'd done like 4 years ago at 4 times the cost. It's like, what? and you're just sitting there trying to figure out like what on earth, why on earth is this, and you shake your head because you have like, what can you do?
Yeah.
It's crazy, and that's part of the problem with it. So that's why, basically, it's like, this is really interesting, and this alludes to the fact it's not 100%. Nothing is 100% until CDPR comes out and says, hey, we're launching the game on such and such a date.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that they're going to launch a game on anything. They have multiple target dates that they're aiming for, that they're trying to release for, and there's more and more evidence piling up that we can say, oh, I think it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Right.
Well, the truth is that that's the exact reason why I got so tired of making videos about another proof that the game is going to be released this year. Because in the end, none of it is a proof at all. And this, as I said before, I've seen other positions at CD Projekt that they couldn't cover in quite a long time. And I saw this, I said, well, maybe this position is asked with enough time to cover it. That doesn't mean the game is going to be released this year. So I don't think I'm going to talk about the release date until they announce the release date.
What are some of those positions that they haven't been able to cover other than the PR manager?
Well, they were looking for an animator, and it took like 2 months to cover. Some time ago, another technical positions, they were constantly asking to cover them. Yeah. I believe
they had a listing for an in-games ads illustrator as well, but that came out last week, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a second. Ali is asking for LastKnownMeal. Well, LastKnownMeal usually is here, but today he's sick, but he'll be back the next week.
Hope he feels better.
Yes.
Yeah. We still have him up on the screen because he's an important part of the team here. So
he's here in spirit with us.
Absolutely.
But we miss
respects.
we miss his sexy Bosnian accent.
Especially me. Damn, son. Cool. Should we move on to maybe a different topic?
Only when you say, "But you're sorry, he's not here." You also apologize for that, like a good Canadian. I'm sorry, he's not here.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta apologize on his behalf. It's a Canadian thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next subject, please.
So I'm gonna list off a couple of these, and then you guys can tell me which ones you would like to talk about, because we haven't really gotten too much news in the past week, and so that's kind of an issue. But I was thinking maybe we could talk about our biggest worries about the game. We could talk about the CDPR store being kind of somewhat live. Cyberpunk Red.
Well, I believe that we have the worries. In fact, we can talk about your list in order. What do you think about that?
Yeah, let's do that. Mm-hmm. So I guess biggest worries would be next.
Okay, this time I will start if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
That this is my biggest worry about the game. I guess that I'm not saying anything new to you. Mm-hmm. Usually your average action game has 3 levels of quality. The gameplay quality, the cutscene quality, and the combat quality. Okay. So usually you have the gameplay quality and the cutscene quality is getting closer because technology is evolving, and every day more games render the cutscenes from the engine instead from having them pre-rendered. But combat quality is always lowest than gameplay quality. So when you enter into combat, you're going to enter into combat because the music suddenly changes and the quality drops. And in here, when I say quality, I mean visual quality,
right?
Meaning animations and graphics. So that was my big complaint when I watched the demo. That I believe that I didn't explain that properly back in the day. One of the things that I didn't like when I watched the demo in the second combat, I didn't have that much problem with the first, because as we didn't come from such a good scene like in the second combat, I didn't have this contrast to, yes. So in the second combat, you come from a scene that is a cutscene quality scene. Is inside gameplay, but the quality of the scene is amazing. The animations are amazing. Mm-hmm. And then you you go to the next scene. You enter combat because you have this Netrunner dancing the Macarena because the animation. I'm so sorry to be cruel here, but the animation of the Netrunner is sad.
When
He's
he's
dancing the Macarena. I mean,
when he's getting shocked? Is that what you're talking about?
yes,
Yeah.
this animation. I was at E3. I was at E3, and I was like, no,
I
what
think
is
the
that?
animations are definitely a sore spot so far. I mean that build is like what 9 months old at this point, but yeah,
Yes,
continue.
I really hope, but my concern is not that they cannot do better. My concern is that it's a standard that the animations of combat are lower than gameplay, and it's an accepted standard. So if they go out with a game where animated animations in combat are lower than gameplay, no one is going to complain because it's normalized in games. Nobody complains ever.
Yeah.
But
Well,
the thing is that if they say that they want to make a seamless game, for me, seamless means that the quality on the whole game is the same. Because maybe these different three qualities of the game, 5 years ago, having this as a standard was okay. But
Right.
we have games like Senua, like Hellblade, Senua Sacrifice, where the whole game is the exact same quality. And you enter into combat because she draws her sword, not because the music changes, abruptly, or because the animations change. Because one of the greatest things about this game is that the enemies of Hellblade, and I talk about random enemies, not the final bosses. The enemies have personality through animations, all of them. They don't have like low-level enemies that they don't bother animating them properly. All enemies are perfectly animated.
Right.
And they have a personality. I remember my favorite was this one that had the skull in the head and was bare-chested and black pants and was coming at you like, oh, making this pimp gesture,
Yeah.
And they had personality. And this is an indie game. I mean, Ninja Theory, well, now belongs to Xbox, but back then it was an indie company. And they did this quality. And later on, the new God of War, that is basically Hellblade with money, did exactly the same. You knew you entered into combat because suddenly you started to receive damage.
Right.
Combat always took you by surprise. It didn't matter if it was a final boss or if it was a random enemy. So when I was watching the demo of Cyberpunk, it's not that I know that this is a demo and it's going to be improved. But the problem is, are they in the mindset where it's not important to raise the quality of animations in combat? I don't know if you follow me
In combat,
what
versus cutscene kind of. Yeah, no, I think we get what you're saying.
yeah.
because maybe
No.
they are going to improve things. I'm sure. I mean, this demo is a year old, but
Yes.
if they consider that these three qualities of a game, sorry, that these three qualities of the game are okay, and it's no problem to have lower quality of animations in combat, they are not going to raise the animations of the combat to make it, comparable to regular gameplay. That's
Right.
my worry.
Right. That's a
Yeah.
fair one. I think that's
I have
fair.
a funny story about that kind of thing and problem.
Go for it.
There was during the release of the Elder Scrolls MMO, there was a packet of both voice lines and animation for a certain mission that never made it into the game. They missed, adding it. So there was just the placeholder stuff when the game came out, and people were like horrified by the quality because it was terrible quality because it was placeholder stuff. And so that's why I don't think we got to see why they didn't necessarily show some of that stuff off to the public as when they did to the press, because often what you have when you have a press release copy of it is you have placeholder art. And I'll never forget the day where I think it was about 3 or 4 there's 3 or 4 E3s ago, where a particular person who I won't name reviewed a game that they had gotten a sneak peek behind doors, and had said, their graphics were really bad and needed to be upgraded, because he could see this one graphic that just had a picture of some guy's face kind of stretched over it, and he thought that was really bad, and he tried to understand what it was, and he couldn't, and it was just really jarring, he said, and he didn't know why they were doing this, and it's just like every developer reading this slaps their forehead and goes, that's a placeholder artwork.
Right,
it's not
right,
actually something that they're going to put in the game.
Right.
It's just they took a picture of somebody in the office, wrapped it around an object because they had nothing else to wrap around the object at the moment that they were putting this together, and it was kind of an inside joke. It's like, why would you report that you assume that this is a feature? Like, just
that's not logical, is it?
Can I cut you here on a moment to answer questions before they disappear on the chat?
Yeah.
Patrick Dees said that his concern is that this will be another release of a game that is not complete. Have you ever heard the co-founder and joint CEO of PROJEKT saying no one remembers a bad game shipped on time?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can be 100% sure that this is not going to be released until it's finished.
That's why they're taking so damn long.
We saw that with The Witcher. I mean, they are not going to release the game if it's not finished. They rather delay it.
Yeah, sure.
In fact, it's quite likely that they are not saying the release date for this reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because when The Witcher 3, they had a lot of backlash because they didn't want to release the game until it was perfect.
Yeah, and that's what they've been drilling into our heads: when it's ready, when it's ready, when it's ready, right? I think more developers should actually do that, because they're not giving us false hopes, false assumptions to, get excited for.
Yeah, in one hand, it's a pity because we want to know the release date, but on the other hand, honestly, I very much rather to have a finished game that have it sooner. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, and also something to add here is that this is something that he really hits on with the comment about nobody remembers a bad game that came out on time, except for really bad games that came out on time but were just so perfected that it would, like No Man's Sky is a big one.
Well, I forgot No Man's Sky. I bought it back in the day when it was out, and I didn't touch it. I played it like 10 hours maximum, and I didn't touch it again.
Now it's back from the dead, right?
Exact same thing. I figured out how to farm mad stacks of cash, and then about 2 hours into that, I realized there's actually nothing to do with any of the money that I have.
Well, also people do remember bad games shipped on time because they were really, really, really bad.
Really bad. Yeah.
Let's go to the next question before they disappear. Will cutscenes be in first person? No, cutscenes are in third person.
No, it's a mix.
It's a mix, right?
They're mostly in first person, and there's some first and third.
Cutscenes. They said the cutscenes are going to be in third person.
I think we have different definitions of what cutscenes are. I guess, yes, traditional cutscenes will be in third person, but the dialogue system, which is kind of cutscene-y or cinematic, is
well,
first
that's
person.
what I said before, that they sometimes had a gameplay quality that was cutscene quality.
Right.
For me, that is gameplay.
Right.
For me, that what you mean is gameplay, and it's not cutscene.
Right. So we're saying the same things, but in different ways.
Yeah.
If you cannot interact with what's going on screen, it's a cutscene. That's my definition.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's fair.
Sorry. Before you go on, can we the questions? Another one's asked if let's be short with this one because I know we can go on forever. Someone asked if the game is going to be multiplayer.
Yes. No.
The released version of Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be
single player only.
Single player, and
post
launch it will come. It's in research and development right now.
And they are working on multiplayer for Cyberpunk.
They've scrapped multiplayer.
Have they?
3 times, I think.
Jesus.
Their current build, the current build that they were going for, they scrapped it 3 times. As far as I understand, Mad Queen, you might have some insight into this that you may or may not be able to confirm or talk about.
That's a little worrisome, isn't it? Because that means
I just want to make that super totally clear. I commit myself to not reveal any kind of inside info that I have on Cyberpunk. Never again.
Okay. So as far as I've been able to confirm from, again, multiple sources, is that they had kind of the original idea of what they were going to go for. They ran into some issues with it. They tried to revamp it, had more issues with it, tried to revamp it a third time, and this was their most recent kind of thing, and they said, let's just put it on ice, and we'll come at it most likely in an expansion. So I very much doubt that we will get multiplayer with the release, which is sad because we were really, really looking forward to it. But
well, I
by
must
no
confess
means-
that if there is a multiplayer, I rather having it when I already had time to make a couple of gameplays in the single player.
Yes.
That is
And
my
that's a
personal
really good
opinion on
point.
that.
But the fact that they've scrapped it 3 times, according to whatever information that you had, is that's a little worrisome. That means they don't really know their direction, or
No.
they're being like extra,
No.
scrutinizing it a little extra.
Mad Queen can attest to this. Adam makes big choices when it comes to things that he likes and things that he doesn't like.
Badowski.
If it's not perfect,
Right.
then he's not gonna, like, if it's not perfect
Okay.
within reason of what
Mhm.
he wants, then
Mhm.
he's gonna send it back to the drawing board. And multiplayer is one of these things where you can really hit or miss.
Right. I respect that. I
depending
respect that decision,
So
actually.
yeah.
Well,
so
I don't find it worrying. I find it the opposite, because for me, it would be worrying that they are not happy with something, but they're going to release it anyway because they spent the money on development. That would be worrying for me.
Yeah.
That they
No,
think, okay,
that's
this is not
worse.
perfect. We're going to start from scratch. For me, I think that's perfect.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I mean, I would assume that they're still trying to work on it. They're still trying to figure it out. They're still trying to come up with a way to make it work really, really well. We know that they want to, and we know that it's really important for them to be able to add it to the game in a proper way.
Right.
But that they want to make sure that it is the proper way, and that it's not just it doesn't feel clunky or tacked on, and that's why they would cancel it that many times, as if we know that there's a lot of single player games that get multiplayer components that are tested, field tested, and ultimately the game designers go, it's just not there yet, and so they cancel it and scrap it.
I think they're trying to fine tune their battle royale Cyberpunk experience.
No, I believe that Adam Kaczynski already said that this was not it wasn't going to be a battle royale.
No, I'm just playing. But I'm
sorry, go on.
I would want to know if it would be like, are they gonna take some inspiration from GTA Online, or I think last week we mentioned the Division 2's Dark Zone. So are they gonna, is it gonna be like that? Because I can see that fitting in nicely. I think the social hub thing was
I know that
somewhat
they
debunked.
were originally planning a social hub. They were originally going for kind of like a system where you could like meet up with other players, form a team, go out and do a kind of like the heist type stuff that you have in
That would be so sick
in GTA.
Yeah.
And it would really play up because you kind of have like this kind of like a class system that was built into the game that early on that had a lot of weight on the gameplay.
Mhm.
And if that were the thing, I mean, that would be really cool, right? Like, imagine, it's not just like people playing different classes going in and doing a hack and slash. Imagine imagine having an actual character class list, right? Let's use the D&D example because it's probably one of the more well-known things that people can wrap their head around. Imagine having a wizard, a bard, a warrior, and what's another good class? A priest, right? Imagine having those three, or cleric, whatever. Imagine having those 4 classes go in and trying to steal rather than fight, but trying to steal, or with the option of fighting, a treasure from some very strong, overpowered enemy.
Yeah.
It's like you might be able to sneak it out way better, or talk your way through it way better than you would by trying to just do good old-fashioned combat. And this is something that the Cyberpunk pen and paper game has always been about. and this is something that they really want to build on, I believe.
Yeah.
Right.
That actually gives me a thought. I wonder how involved Mike Pondsmith is in the actual multiplayer element, because I know that at this point he's pretty hands off as far as I know. But I wonder if he has any weight or, thoughts on the multiplayer, because he was a developer way back in the day, was he not? For Xbox. He's involved
Well,
Yeah,
in
he-
I
Crimson
guess that
Skies and stuff
whatever
like
is
that.
the sorry,
No, go ahead.
I
Go
think
ahead.
that whatever is developed on the game he's in. I mean, I'm sure he wants to put his input,
Mhm.
and not only as a developer, also as a player of pen and paper games.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to see his
We
character.
had another question. Do you want to go on with the multiplayer, or can we go to
We can jump to
more
the next
questions?
topic if you guys want.
Yes, I'm following the questions that people are leaving on the chat,
Yeah, let's
and there's another one.
let's
Another
check
one
out
that
some
I
of the
found very
questions.
interesting.
Mhm.
That is, someone asked. Sorry, I don't know who because it disappeared, but I like the question. Someone asked if we believe that there's going to be a downgrade with regards of the demo that we already saw. I guess that this question comes from what happened in The Witcher 3, where there was this downgrade due to consoles shortage.
I believe they've said they've
And
learned from that, right?
yeah, well, I take for granted. I was
Yeah.
going to say, I take for granted people learn from their mistakes, but then I look at Activision and I am not really sure. Smart people tend to learn from their mistakes. I believe, and I want to make ultra super clear that this is no kind of inside info. That is something that I believe, but I may be really wrong on here.
Right.
That there is a version of the game that is higher quality than what we saw so far. And we didn't see it because the new generations of consoles have not been announced yet. I believe that it's not a downgrade. We're going to see an upgrade.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
But again,
actually.
This is no inside info. This is something that is a personal deduction of mine, and I can be really wrong in here.
Right. Yeah, next gen will make it interesting. I kind of agree with you. For two reasons, what you said about next gen, and they've already said Red Engine 4 is ready to make that leap, and then that they don't want another Witcher 3 downgrade fiasco. I think that really, not only did it kind of fray maybe some of their sales, maybe not, but it kind of just upset them in general because they are so, perfection oriented. So I don't think we'll see a downgrade. I think you might be able to play at less of a fidelity on like the base PS4 versus PS4 Pro, obviously, but other than that, no.
Yeah, but PS4 Pro is like a mini jump compared to the PlayStation 4. I mean,
Right.
It's not like the Scorpio with the Xbox.
Sorry, let me just interrupt you for a second. Andre Velasquez, thank you for the donation. That's awesome.
Yay.
I appreciate that. And then there was also another one earlier. I forget. Thomas. Let me scroll up here. I think it was Thomas. Anyways, shout out to both of you guys. That's awesome. Thank you for the support. Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, I believe that we all expect the consoles, the new generation of consoles is going to be here. And someone said consoles, but not PC.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is that that's what happened in The Witcher 3. They had to downgrade the PC version because the consoles were unable to handle the quality of the game. And if the PC version had a better quality, then consoles wouldn't want to have this game on their console. And they needed to be multi-platform to reach the market in the States. So they had to downgrade the game in general for everybody. And regarding the specs, someone talked about the specs needed for PC. It is not known yet what specs are you going to need to play Cyberpunk 2077. The only information, and you will be able to find it in the official forum of Cyberpunk 2077, is the specs used to play the demo at E3 and Gamescom. That's the only information available about the specs.
Yeah. And that's quite a beefy
PC.
So
I have something I can add to the downgrade thing, just as a general like industry wide response. More and more developers are becoming very negative and very confrontational with the consoles when they start making demands to downgrade the graphics so that it actually runs on their machine. Their response is basically, why are you holding us back because your 4-year-old console can't keep up with current day PCs?
Yeah.
Like, and this is a thing, and more of the developers, there's I can't say any of their names, but there's a couple of them, really big ones that we've talked to very recently, where they are really upset by this, and they feel that the industry as a whole is being held back, and kind of like you're in this horse race where every 100 yards you have to stop, wait for everybody to catch up, and then horse race again.
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting tired of the yo-yoing in the technological front, and they don't want to have to continue to deal with it. So the consoles are trying to make some concessions to the developers and trying to keep them, because they understand that if games were to not be held back by this, that more and more, especially, you know, at release it's not so bad, but, you know, 2-3 years down the road, you know, a console is going to be basically garbage compared to what you can get on
PC.
on a current PC.
Yeah.
And that the ability to just, you know, measure your stuff to, you know, on PC, you know, in most games you can just go settings, go through, change the things, you can make it look like it, you know, something from 4 years ago. You can make it look like something that is just using every tool that you possibly can to make it look as pretty as you can. And that there are people who do this in both directions, and they're totally okay. It's one of the reasons why PC gaming is facing this renewed surge of usage, especially in Asia, especially in Japan. It's going through the roof. They're hitting quadruple digits for PC growth in Japan. So
Wow.
that means it's more than 900%. It's well into the 1000 percentile. Boom. Every month. That's insane. The amount of people that are buying PCs and putting PCs together in Japan is through the roof. And console makers are going to run into this in the next generation. There's going to be this giant wall. Now, what things like Stadia does to the market, we don't know yet. But that's I won't go any more into that. But it's just something to note on that front.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, if the percentage of gaming on PC is big, still, if you want a game to be noted on the market, you need to be multi-platform.
Right.
I
Because
mean,
CDPR made most of their
this
sales from The Witcher 3 on consoles, right? It's not until maybe last year or like the year before that they actually, you know, the bridge was met between PC sales and console sales based
to
on
be
that
honest,
financial.
the last time that I checked was a couple of years ago, and they were like 60%, 60-70% consoles and the rest of PC.
Yeah, exactly.
And no, around 60, yes. But I checked a couple of years ago. Maybe now that they have this incredible offer on GOG, they sold a lot more copies.
Well, they showed it on the financial summary that happened, what, 2 weeks ago? They had a chart about The Witcher 3 and how well it sold on each platform through the years. And the shift has been to PC, I guess. I guess because it's getting older and it's on Steam and stuff like that, but yeah.
It's
Cool
a pity
stuff.
that they didn't port The Witcher to consoles.
Maybe one day.
Well, they tried, and yeah,
Have they already tried?
it didn't go great. That's a pity. That's a pity because they became famous with the third, and the second is also a great game. And it's a pity that that people don't know what they are missing. The problem is that it's getting older, and in general terms, people used to be really lazy in playing games that look old. Some didn't age well. You know, I tried to play Deus Ex 3 recently.
Yo, me too. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it was so cringy, right?
Yeah, incredibly cringy.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I loved it back in the day, but it didn't age well. I'm so sorry for that. Sometimes games don't age well. But in case they do, it's a pity that people don't want to play old games. On the other hand, the truth is that there are so many good new games that it's difficult to find time to play the old
Yes.
ones.
You have no idea. You have no idea how frustrating it is to try and keep up with this stuff. Last week. I was sent 3 like pre-alpha or like games that you know the devs wanted me to try out. This week I had another 2. It's like I can't put more than 3 hours into these because there's just so many of them on top of whatever everything else that I'm doing. So yeah, we're about to hit, like, what we're seeing right now with indie games and their explosion is nothing. Just you wait. You're going to see in 5-6 years time an explosion of indie games like you have never ever seen before, because the technology to make them is just getting easier and easier and easier. We're lining up a couple of interviews with a couple of indie studios over the next little bit here, where we're talking with people who are making games that is making huge waves, and they're doing it with, you know, a small team of you know, less than a dozen people, and they're able to make games that are, right now they're starting to threaten, you know, Activision and EA's power hold on certain genres. It's like, wow.
Like, how many people
Just
are on
wow.
the development team of Bloodlines? I don't think it's that many, right? That's not an indie game, but like the
Yeah,
dev teams have started to become like pretty small in some situations, which is quite impressive.
yeah. And then in other situations like you have with CDPR, you see that they're actively like using those people to the benefit. When we look at EA and we look at BioWare, what happened with Anthem, it's like they put that game together in 9 months
Yeah.
after having worked on the general concept of this game for 6 years. It's like 6
Yikes.
years, and literally like 400 or 500 people working on that for 6 years, and that's what you get.
Now it comes
Oh,
free with like
goodness
new graphic
sakes.
card purchases.
And the scariest thing was, and I know we have some people from one of the studios listening, and look, I understand that I understand that you what you tried to do, and I understand that you were, you know, that you tried hard. And I'm not dissing that, but it is worrisome to see when the developers themselves think that the game is as good as they think it is.
Right.
And that's concerning. That's concerning. Um, I know it's kind of like, I know there's some like community psychological
Sorry
things that
to
happen.
cut you for a moment,
Yeah,
type.
yeah,
Neon, please check your messages on Discord.
On Discord?
Please go on. Yes,
yeah.
please go on,
So
type.
it's just interesting and odd to see this kind of reaction from people who, you know, they started out in some cases in these positions where they were, you know, 1 in 20 people working on a project, and then when you fast forward, like, you know, all these years, they're 1 in 500 working on a project, and the project goes nowhere. It's like, oh, how does that happen? How do you get so, like, is it bureaucracy? Is it a form of like, um it's like corporate tribalism, I guess, is a term, where it's like you think your product is good because you're on team Sony, on team Activision, on team whatever, and you think you can't do any wrong because look at all the great stuff you've made in the past. You know, there's that kind of a mentality. That's what I mean by that. And I literally just made up that term off the top of my head. So, it's something that's a little bit concerning to see, but it's also really great to see games that are coming out of the woodwork that are brilliant, that are utilizing new things or old things just done in the way that we were asking the big studios to do them ages ago. It's
Right.
like, how hard is it for us to get a game from Sony, from EA, from, you know, these big corporations, where just give us a good product. Like Sekiro is a great example of that. That thing sold over 2 million copies now,
That's insane.
because it offers a challenge. It offers, and some people say, you know, it's too much of a challenge. Other people, you know, My issues with the game is not on its difficulty; it's with the choice of characters. It's like, and that's my only beef about that game. I love the fact that it's hard. And there are games that I've never been able to complete. The biggest game I regret never completing.
Oh, do you understand? Do you understand that the complaint is not being hard? The complaint is an accessibility complaint. That someone didn't understand and did report that as the complaint was the game is too hard, and then it spread like the complaint is too hard. This is inaccurate. The original complaint is that the game doesn't have enough accessibility options.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that because it comes down to like what some people inter and put their own like interpretation on what's being said.
And yes, that's the problem. The problem is that originally the complaint was, please developers put more accessibility options. Then some big YouTuber that I'm not going to name said that some lazy people were complaining that the game was too difficult, and this was translated into general public understanding. The complaint it was that the game was too difficult, and then people discussing and going crazy and being polarized about that.
But there are people who say that it's too difficult and it shouldn't be difficult.
Yes, but this came from the back
end. Casuals.
Yes, but this came for what I said before, because someone didn't understand what was the big complaint and said that the complaint was the game was too hard, and then this created all the discussion around if the game is hard or is not hard enough, or is too hard, or what the fuck is going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the original complaint wasn't that. Was that the game needs more accessibility things.
I'm not referring to that as the original complaint. I'm referring to the original complaints that came before that, where people were like, "This is too hard." So that's what I'm referring to. That's why I said.
In a universe where Dark Souls and Bloodborne exist, this game is not too hard. Period.
No,
I am sorry.
It's not. It's not too hard, and that's the point I'm getting at, because I'm referring to a game, and I don't know how many people have played this, but back in the day, I never finished this game, and it's still something I think about today, even though I've played thousands of games and completed thousands of very difficult games. The one game that I remember the most from my childhood that I was not able to complete was Avoid the Noid. Does anybody remember that game?
What? Sorry, what game?
Avoid the Noid.
Avoid the Noid. That doesn't sound like something I'd want to play.
You are a pizza delivery guy going floor by floor up to the top penthouse of I think it was 100-story building, trying to deliver a pizza.
Is it a Krusty Krab pizza?
And there's a rabbit who is called the Noid, who was trying to stop you from delivering the pizza. You had 3 pizzas, and if you got touched by any of the Noids, or hit or damaged or whatever, you would lose the pizza. And 3 deaths was all it took. You had to start all the way back at level 1.
That sounds kind of intriguing. So, I'd want to play that.
So the trouble that we hit was that when we got up to the top floor, there was a Noid with a bazooka who fired constantly with a large explosion, and there was a keypad that you had to put a password into. This is after going through 100 levels of trying to be perfect.
Yikes.
And then every time you went to put in the code, at most, if you were really good, you might be able to put in the code twice per life. And it was a 3-digit code, and you had no idea what the code was.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, it was a nightmare. Me and my brother pulled out our hair trying to figure out this stupid game. And the ending has always eluded me, and I'm probably gonna go look up on YouTube after this goes. But this is just what I'm saying. It's like difficulty does not necessarily mean that. Now, accessibility, yes, that there's an argument to be had there.
So let's translate that to Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that difficulty settings are going to be, they're going to be the top tier one is going to be because The Witcher 3, a lot of people said that game wasn't very hard for them on what's the Death March, right? That's the highest difficulty.